Okay, your budget template is almost ready to go out and you're doing some final testing. You want to make the variance and the variance percent column formula driven because you're going to be reusing this in the future. You're doing some final testing. Everything looks good. The variance, percentage variance is working together. But what happens if you're budgeting for a loss? All of a sudden, there's a divergence between the variance and the variance percentage in the net income. Hang in there for the next few minutes, and I'll show you how to get both of those columns working together on the same team. Here's an example of a very simple budget to actual financial income statement. While this is a historical example, it could be a pro forma or perhaps a template you plan to use over and over. The variance formula can easily be memorized this way. I think of it as good or bad. On the revenue or sales side, having more revenue than budgeted is generally thought of as a good thing. So on any row that this is the case, the variance needs to be a positive number. That means actual minus budget is the formula. Having more gross margin or net income than budgeted is also good. So those would follow the same rule as revenue, actual minus budget. On the expense side, more expense is generally not thought of as a good thing. So the variance formula is reversed. It's budget minus actual. That's really just step one. Next, on to the percent variances. The formula in the percent variance column is really simple. It's just the variance amount divided by the budget amount. So it seems simple enough. It works in anything in this column. The problem is going to be division by zero. So if your budget is zero on any line, you're going to need to include an if error function there, and it's going to look something like this. Basically, if there's an error in your calculation, it provides an alternative thing that you can do or something that you can show. I tend to show a zero there because I like it to look like it's filled in. I know that some people like to use, and let me move this to a zero again. Some people like to use a null function there. I think it makes your financials, particularly if they're long, look like it's got holes in it when there's a zero there. So I typically don't use that. I like to use the zero here because it looks like I've at least copied things down. That's the first thing that can go wrong there. One of the other things that can go wrong is suppose you've budgeted for a loss. You wind up with a situation where you've got more income than budget, which is a good thing. This is a positive number, okay. The problem here is this is a negative number. So the way to fix that is using an absolute value function. And it's kind of like it's like the number line you learned in school, right? An absolute value doesn't care whether it's positive or negative. It just gives you the distance from zero. So an absolute value always returns a positive number. I'm going to flip over to this other sheet. Here's how I'm using it. We still have our same if error function. We have our same division, except I've included an if function in here that basically looks at the variance and says, if your variance number is greater than or equal to zero, use the absolute value, making sure that's positive. If not, use a negative sign before the absolute value. That'll make sure that things in the variance column that are less than zero reflect as a negative in that percentage variance column. In effect, that's like taking a -1 times the absolute value, making sure that it returns a negative. That's my story on percent variances. That's kind of the best way I've really found to fix them. Let me know if you have another solution. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching. Hope it helps.
Yeah.